Hey guys, Steve Curtin here, Shambhala Gardens. At the tail end of a 4-day weekend here, got a lot of work done, so I wanted to talk about some of the things that I've been doing the last 4 days. Kind of shifted gears around here. Last update I did, spring 2018 update, I talked about converting a large portion of my garden. I have a 1/4 acre here. I wanted to convert a lot of it to perennial fruit-bearing trees and bushes, goji berry, dwarf mulberry, all those sorts of things, because it was just too much to handle for one person working a full-time job and doing this part-time. So I got kind of burned out by it, kind of discouraged. I didn't want to let this all go to weeds, so I wanted to do something productive with it. So that was the plan until I started binge watching John Jevons' YouTube channel. John Jevons is the creator of the Biointensive system, and watching his channel kind of put the zap into me to go and implement more of a biointensive system here. I advertise biointensive at the farmers market, and I talk about it on all of my social media, but I realized watching his channel that I don't really grow biointensive, not in the fundamentalist sense. And so I'll talk to you about what that is. He developed biointensive mostly so that third world developing nations could grow their own food without any outside industrial inputs. And it allows them to get 100% of their caloric and nutritional needs through just growing a garden. There's no, without having, cattle, meat, eggs, or anything like that, any of these first world luxuries. So it's developed to be totally self-sustaining without any petrochemical fertilizers. You don't need tractors or irrigation. It's fully self-contained. So how it works is you take 60% of your garden and dedicate that to compost crops. So over half of your garden, you're growing plants that won't even be eaten by you. And I got into biointensive when I first moved here, but it wasn't very attractive to me because I only had 250 square feet of raised garden bed space. And I didn't want to devote 60% of that to just growing, cover crops and compost crops and manure crops, because I wanted to eat the food that I was growing, and I needed more space. So now that I have a 1/4 acre of it, it's much more attractive. So you're growing crops that are producing a lot of biomass, things like buckwheat. If you've ever grown buckwheat, it comes up quickly, and within a few weeks it's ready to cut down. It's just so much, it's so massive. And then there's other cereal grains produce a lot of biomass. A lot of crops like rye have very, very deep-reaching root systems, so they go down and break up the soil. And then when you cut it back and it dies, the roots remain in the soil and die, and they add nutrients to the soil. They also get deep down there into the soil and pull the nutrients back up towards the topsoil, so that anything that you plant later on can implement that. So really useful. Also plants like legumes, and the principal characteristic of a legume, at least for the purpose of gardening, is they take nitrogen out of the air, which is very unstable. Plants can't use it. They pull it into the soil, convert it to a stable form of nitrogen, and then leave it there so that other plants you grow will be able to use it. So they call it fixing nitrogen. So that's what legumes do. You got fava beans, alfalfa, any kind of bean really will fix nitrogen. Also other kinds of plants like mimosa, mesquite, these are all legumes. Lupines, kind of a flower. So really amazing plant the legumes are. And a lot of them produce a lot of biomass. Alfalfa, fava beans, hairy vetch, lots and lots of mass for the compost pile. And so 30% of your crop will be for calorie crops like potatoes, rutabaga, turnips, those sorts of things. And 10% will be nutrition crops like broccoli, kale, things that produce a lot of protein, a lot of vitamins and minerals. So, first world privilege here. I eat animals. I have my own chickens for eggs. I have my own rabbits for meat. And I also follow a ketogenic kind of paleo lifestyle where I get most of my calories from fat as opposed to carbohydrates. So the biointensive system doesn't work with my lifestyle. And I also have a homestead here. Like I said, I have chickens, I have rabbits. I also have this 1/4 acre garden here, but my entire property is over an acre. So I have a compost crop known as my lawn, and I refer it to as a compost crop. I don't really, not really a fan of my lawn, but you know, there's way too much space for me to turn it into a garden, and most of it's on a pretty steep slope anyway. Nothing would grow there. So when I mow my lawn, I'm dumping that right into the compost pile as well. So I don't really need to devote 60% of my garden to compost crops, but I could do some of it, and it occurred to me that a lot of these compost crops are good for feeding my animals, my rabbits and my chickens especially. If you've ever had rabbits and looked at a rabbit feed, the principal ingredient is alfalfa. So I've planted some alfalfa here. I planted some buckwheat here. The chickens love buckwheat. So instead of, you know, some of it could go into the compost pile, but most of it will just go to feed the animals. The animals will eat it, the animals will poop it out, and that poop goes into the compost pile. It's all the same thing. So, you know, hopefully I can make a dent in my animal feed bill, make myself a little bit more self-sufficient, and you know, it just looks a lot better. I got some moringa trees, a nice row of moringa trees growing in this mulched plot right here. Over there I built that garden bed, ripped out a whole mess of wild dewberry thorns, and I'll plant some hibiscus there. Over here you can see my zucchini doing really well. I should have that at the next farmer's market. This week's farmer's market went really well. I didn't have a terrible amount of kale. That's all I had was kale, but I sold out of it, made a little bit of extra money, helped out a lot. I want to thank everybody who came out. Next week I'm going to have to rebuild a lot of these beds here. They're falling apart. My strawberry patch has gone to weed. It's pretty sad. Got some asparagus here. This is my jalapeno bed. And I'm tearing up these beds again. These beds went to weed, and I'm tearing these up again and planting more buckwheat, more alfalfa. These beds back over here, already established, is the cucumbers and beets, and I'll pull that tarp up and plant more peppers, bell peppers, cayenne peppers, and more jalapenos. So spring is still in gear. We're having really amazing weather. Hopefully it stays cool and I don't get the summer burnout too quickly. It happens every year. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.